Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Tom Smith and I'm a member of the business development team at Net Capital. And today's webinar, we are joined with Matt O'Connor from Timed Health Corporation. Matt is the executive co-chairman of the Timed Health Corporation. And in the, just giving folks a few minutes here, we're gonna wait a minute or two before we get started and just give everyone a chance to log in. This is great. We got a lot of folks in here on time, which is great. Awesome. Why don't we give everyone another minute? Appreciate folks being on time. It looks like we got the ticker going up a bit. Give folks another few seconds here. All right. All right, well, why don't we get started here? For those who weren't on right at 2 o'clock, welcome to today's webinar with Timed Health Corporation. My name is Tom Smith and I'm a member of the business development team at Net Capital. I am joined by Matt O'Connor, executive co-chairman of Timed Health Corporation. This is a live Q&A as well as a live webinar, which will be recorded. So if you need to jump off in the middle or towards the end, you can certainly go to the Net Capital YouTube page and listen to it in its entirety at your own leisure. And as I mentioned, we will be doing a live Q&A. So if you could put those in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen as opposed to the chat, we'll pull some of those questions up towards the end and fire them off to Matt. And Timed Health Corporation is currently live on Net Capital. So if you go to netcapital.com and search Timed Health Corporation, for as little as $100, you can invest in their business and check out the awesome things that they are doing and the innovation really that's happening at Timed Health Corporation. And Matt, it is an absolute pleasure to be on with you today. And
yeah, Tom, thanks.
No, absolutely. It's really my pleasure. And before we get started, just getting to know you and whatnot, I find your background fascinating. Would you mind just touching upon that a little bit for people just to get to know you a little better? And maybe I'm selfish. I'm just really intrigued and really just want to hear from the horse's mouth, but I'm sure everyone else would like to hear as well.
All right, sure. You got it, Tom. Nice to meet you. And thanks for the opportunity this afternoon. So by way of introduction, Matt O'Connor, executive co-chairman, like Tom said. Graduated from the Naval Academy and then spent 11 years active duty in the Navy, flying Hornets. Did a couple deployments to various parts of the world, and with that, the exception of the small stretch between maybe Singapore and the western side of India, more or less been around the world. So enjoyed that period of life, but left active duty after 11 years or so, joined the reserves, which I continued to serve with, and jumped over to business. So for the last several years, been working in a manufacturing company, systems engineer by education, by way of the Naval Academy, and then a master's out of Cornell, and applying that really more on the operational excellence side, process improvement, if you will, in the manufacturing world, primarily metals. I got involved with Timed Health 4 or 5 years ago, early on in the ideation phase, when we were having some cursory technology discussions. And then more recently, took a more active role in the leadership team, which is why we're here today.
Awesome. Really appreciate that, Matt. Before we go any further, thank you for your service.
Sure.
Both, while you were full-time with the Navy as well as in the reserves. It's so commendable and admirable with what you've done and what you continue to do. And just really want to take this opportunity on behalf of myself, Net Capital, and those who are listening, just to thank you for your continued service and just bravery and representing the U.S. around the world.
Appreciate that. Yeah, proud to do it. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. So with diving into Timed Health Corporation, I guess we'll start by, can you just give us, just an overview of the company and just a background on just what is Timed Health Corporation?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great place to start. So Timed Health it's a fully patented software platform. Ultimately, our goal, we're predicated on the premise that healthcare delayed is healthcare denied. Well over half of our population is afflicted with chronic illness, usually illnesses that progress. And if you triage those progressions earlier, or those conditions, I should say, the implications of long-term care are reduced. So our goal or our target is to apply therapies and triage predictable, preventable chronic conditions earlier in that progression to prevent those long-term impacts. So ultimately, what we've created is a software system that provides predictive analytics to providers and information to payers that we can pre-position up to 2-day supply of the next most likely needed medications, next most likely being defined as a 40 to 80% probability of being needed in the next 1 day to 4 months or so. So the idea is you have your pre-prescribed next most likely medications on your person or near your person. And when conditions arise that would predicate the use of that medication, instead of having to go to an emergency room and wait in the ever increasing wait times of the healthcare system or wait for a doctor's appointment, you can start that therapy immediately and then seek the next level of care. And if we do this effectively, we can slow down those disease progressions, and which has long-term implications on our healthcare system and our health as a population. So that's the nutshell. I know there's a lot in there, but does that make sense?
No, Matt, that's a great overview, and we'll certainly dive in further. But really appreciate you diving in there and just giving such a great overview of Timed Health Corporation. And I think, with any great leadership and organization, there has to be a great team. So can you touch upon a little bit about the team? What are their backgrounds, and really what makes the Timed Health Corporation team unique, special, and successful?
Yeah, great question. So sharing the leadership right now, we have 2 part-time co-chairmen, myself and Gerard O'Connor, and then a full-time CEO, James Applebach. James brings more of the logistics side of the business. He owns his own logistics company. He's worked for Amazon, great P&L experience, and really drives the operational side of the business. Gerard is a surgeon. He brings that provider aspect, understanding the pain points that our healthcare providers have, and how the processes therein can be simplified. And then I bring, as I already mentioned, some of that operational excellence and business acumen to the team, rounded out by a great board of directors, on which we have some finance acumen, some risk, and then some healthcare administration. So I think we have the bases very well covered, strong team to continue to drive Timed Health down the lane.
Absolutely. And when I was speaking to a couple of folks at Net Capital earlier, and we've been working with you and your company for some time now, and then the first thing when I saw your company, I said, wow, this team, and I think you put it right, really A through Z, you guys have the bases covered with the knowledge, the drive, the ambition, the experience, and really the passion. Sure. I think for what you do. And I think it can be felt with hearing you speak today, but just kind of the mission base and the goals of the company.
Yeah, no, it's a great team. Thanks.
Absolutely, and we're just excited to see where Timed Health Corporation goes with such a great team. And Matt, with any company, right? There's always the impetus on why it was founded, and really, what are you trying to solve? What is the problem? And I know you touched upon it a little bit in the overview, but can you dive in? I don't want to say a little further, but can we take it, that extra
Yeah.
mile, if you will, and really explain the problem that Timed Health Corporation is solving?
Sure, absolutely. I talked about those chronic conditions that plague, most of America. In fact, diabetes and hypertension, and the precursors to those diseases, which are our initial targets, can be attributed to impacting over 50% of the population at an annual cost of over $325 billion to the healthcare system. Again, most of those conditions are progressive, meaning if you triage the symptoms earlier, then you can change those long-term outcomes. And that's ultimately what we're about, changing the health outcomes, not only for patients, but for providers and for payers. Our doctors are overworked. There's a shortage of them. Our healthcare system is stressed. I mean, we haven't seen that more acutely than in the last year with coronavirus. And along those lines, as we look to the future and prove our pudding, so to speak, in diabetes and hypertension, the implications into other preventable, prepositionable therapies, such as vaccines and otherwise, can become part of the plan, of course. So the whole idea is shortening that timeline to care to delay those long-term preventable disease progressions. The theory is that we can avoid almost 30% of the overall cost of the healthcare system by preventing the severity, I guess, of the long-term implications of some of those conditions. So, the platform is designed again to forecast and predict those next most likely needed medications based on your medical history. So there's a data analytical component to this to understand what any given patient might need. It's very personal and very specific, to that patient provider relationship, but to the point where we can, as providers, know what you will need and when you'll need it and have it there with you ready for your use. And then it just becomes a conversation of symptoms and conditions to authorize use of that medication, again shortening that time of care. You could summarize it as more healthcare per capita, because we are expanding the capabilities of doctors, not constrained to a physical visit. Theoretically, doctors can see more patients more rapidly, and we've seen that already. Telehealth is not necessarily new, right? We're taking telehealth the next step further of tying it to that, the medication and that prepositioning aspect to, again, even further shorten that time to care, if that makes sense.
No, it certainly does, Matt, and thank you. I mean, you think about it, right? The only thing, like the one thing that we really have in this world are our bodies, right? And being able to take care of that. And I think, COVID has really shed a light on a number of things, but I think it just really, the importance of health, being healthy, staying active, and things like that. And obviously, we've had to pivot in a number of ways with that because, of lack of, I guess, being social and things like that. But I think
Right.
everyone, at least myself, with just seeing just the absolute devastation that this insidious virus has caused, we need the proper things in place for, if there is, whether it be a COVID-2 or the flu or just, the common, like just
Right.
regular things, right? The common cold, that we need to
Yeah,
have certain mechanisms in place to, to help folks and keep them healthy.
exactly. And these things, increase the challenge, but ultimately, um, whether consciously or unconsciously, a lot of times that care is delayed or patients don't seek care is because of the healthcare system itself. They don't want to go and sit in a doctor's office. They don't want to go and sit in an emergency room. So they just delay or otherwise self-deny care altogether. We're aiming to change that. We're giving patients the tools to take better care of themselves and reduce some of that otherwise burden why they wouldn't seek it themselves, right? Take away the excuses, if you will.
No, absolutely. So we got into obviously a little bit, and we'll touch upon that. I'm sure there'll be a question regarding that third one. But the fourth question that I have, and I think, for folks that are tuning in that will listen when this recording is distributed, is really, what is the market opportunity? When
Yeah.
looking at an investment, really, how big can Timed Health Corporation go? What's the, I guess the impact and really the growth and potential here? Can you dive into a little bit of that for us?
Yeah. Diabetes and hypertension alone, total addressable market is upwards of $180 billion. Now, serviceable for us, again, this is more for the early stages and the precursor conditions to get ahead of those progressions, for the easily controllable, low risk medications is probably closer to the 15 to $30 billion range, somewhere in the order of 6 to 10 million people. Ultimately, the U.S. medication market in 2018 for anti-diabetics was $80 million. That's just the medication alone. The vaccines were 40 billion. And then, Humira, as an example, which is an immunotherapy drug, had a $22 billion revenue, just a single drug alone. So when you consider this is more than just the cost of the medication, it's the system, it's the process, it's the predictive data analytics, serviceable market, long-term, upwards of $15 billion. Our initial targets are considerably less. Obviously, we need to build the business out. I'll talk a little bit more about the business model shortly, I presume, but targeting more of a subscription model for folks that know they're predisposed to some of these conditions, and considering the scoping of diabetes and hypertension, wanting to start small, cut our teeth there, and then we can expand into that more prolific market I discussed earlier of upwards of 325 billion for chronic conditions.
Oh, absolutely. And it's certainly a big market. And we can get, this is another story from another day, but I'm kind of a healthcare nut and geek, if you will. It comes from, just past personal experiences. I just find the whole processing of it being fascinating, and being from Massachusetts with, a lot of great hospitals around here, and having gone to a few hospitals up and down the East Coast. I just think it's a fascinating process. One that I think, though we have a lot of great people doing a lot of great things, it can certainly be improved. And and Timed Health Corporation certainly seems like it's on the path to do that.
Yeah, it's ripe for innovation and breakthrough, and we've already talked about the impacts that the last year has had on exposing some of that. I think now is the time, right? Telehealth exists, like we said, but we're right on the precipice of really driving into mainstream and making it, again, tying it to that reduction in time to care, right? That's the next breakthrough. That's where we are.
I absolutely. And like you said, it's time to care. And I know, like I said, at the impetus of and the core of the healthcare profession, there are just I just think it's such an amazing and admirable field to be in. But there are improvements that need to be made, and Timed Health is certainly working to doing that. The next question, Matt, is just surrounding your business model, and really what it is. And then I guess I'm sure a lot of people are asking, how do you make money?
Sure.
Very simple.
Yeah, great, obvious question. So at its core, Timed Health is software, predicated on predictive data analytics. We have 5 patents, the earliest dating back to 2011, and then stretching through the 2000 teens, that cover some of that predictive analytics, as well as some of the telehealth aspects of the process. We make money in 2 ways. One is through the software itself and licensing it, and right now we're considering SaaS model versus on-prem model, and potential combination of both. And ultimately, revenues from memberships. I alluded to that earlier, where as a patient you would become a member that would bring with it certain benefits and certain basic membership benefits. And then, of course, a tiered model from there to expand for different levels of care and different service levels, like you would expect in any membership-based plan. So between the two, that's how we make the revenue. We don't necessarily make revenue from selling the medications. We would partner with the providers on that. Of course, a critical piece of the business puzzle, but more of a benefit.
No,
Members, yeah.
absolutely. And certainly the benefit is there. And Matt, just before we go on to the next question, just want to remind everyone that Timed Health Corporation is live. You can visit them at netcapital.com, and for as little as $100, if you read their offering page and look at their statement, if you'd like to make an investment for as little as $100, you can do so. Just want to keep people aware of the great things that Timed Health Corporation is doing, and I guess most excitingly, where they're going. Next question is really, we know you've been working on this for some time, whether it be directly or just with, with the team, the experience and whatnot. You all have such unique backgrounds.
Yeah.
But today, it's kind of since the inception of the Timed Health Corporation, can you talk a little bit about the progress that you've made so far? And then a two-part question. And then I guess most excitingly, where's the next milestone?
Yeah, sure. Much of the time up to this point has been spent on patenting the technology and getting all of the IP squared away and secure. We do have prototypes of the software, and the next milestone is to iterate that software to a point where we can commercialize it and go to market. So out of this offering, it's really going directly into software development, so we can start to generate revenues. Currently planning another offering later this year to further expand more into the physician side. We're going to start with patient subscription, and then later this year move into the provider side, the physician side, as a way to expand the market and continue to generate revenue. So at this point, the milestone is commercializable software.
Got it. Appreciate that, Matt. And this is great. I know we have the questions are starting to roll in, so we're gonna have a really nice Q&A here. But I do have another question for you, and I think this is a common one in the private capital markets.
Right.
I'm investing, in a private company. Obviously, I'm investing because I believe in them. But what's a potential exit for me as an investor? How am I going to make my return, and really, what's the vision for investors with Timed Health Corporation?
Yeah, that's a good one. All along we've kind of been doing this similar to almost a blockbuster drug situation where we can corner a market and then ideally go to market with an IPO or ultimately get bought. Some other examples in similar areas, Live On Go. They originally went for a $358 million IPO, and then soon thereafter were purchased in a $37 billion deal. PillPack, they were acquired by Amazon for $753 million. So, we have 5 patents covering this technology, from telehealth delivery all the way to remote delivery of medications and therapies. And that's really the strength. And there are also more than 5 currently in the chain, both in U.S. and in international markets. So again, heavily patented technology. And I think, our goal is, an off-ramp within 4 years of an IPO, or more fortunately, an acquisition.
No, that's great, Matt. And moving on forward here, we have a couple of questions that I just want to pivot to, if that's okay with you.
Right.
And the first one is, and this parlays off of what you just said when you mentioned patents, but how many issued patents are there for Timed Health Corporation?
Yeah, and I just did hit on that. You're right. So there are 5, and there are several others that are currently under decision in international markets. So that covers the existing footprint, and of course, we're always looking for the next innovation in the next area where we can, secure our technologies and our ideas.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And following up with that is, how is your technology a physician manpower multiplier? We are told that up to 80% of common healthcare can be better done by physicians using predictive science and artificial intelligence eventually.
Yeah, good question. It seems like someone has done their homework. So like I alluded to earlier, the predictive data science piece, which again is one of the core of technologies within our patents, is that ability through data to shorten the time to diagnosis. Right now, physicians have to know someone's health history. They have to be familiar with them, with their patients, to draw conclusions as to what the next most likely conditions or necessary medications would be, when theoretically, we have a world's worth of data from which we can draw those insights and make those connections faster, so that the physician can focus on, the human component of this, and really multiplying their ability to support other patients. So let me put it in just a very high level example. If you have a 30-minute doctor's visit to talk with the physician and go through your health history, let's just, for sake of rough numbers, say with predictive data science, walking in the door, the doctor already knows your health history and is able to tell you that you're 80% likely to have this condition within the next 2 months. So here's your pre-prescribed 2-day supply of this drug to combat that condition. And that 30-minute conversation is now 5. So therefore, you just basically get to see six patients in a 30-minute period instead of 1. And again, these are all rough numbers and just for sake of argument, right? But that's where you get the multiplier, and that's where 80% of that healthcare can be done with technology. You still need that human component. I don't think we'll ever get rid of that. I think we're learning that through COVID as well. And sitting on this call, maybe we would be in the same room in a different phase of life, right? But I think the analytical piece is ripe for technology, and that's what our goal is.
Absolutely, Matt. And this question seems to go back to one of the questions that we asked. I think this person just asking for further explanation. When you talk about changing kind of the healthcare and health outcomes, can you dive deeper into what that means for doctors?
For doctors?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an important distinction here. People can consider that if we're changing the long-term implications of outcomes, then we're changing ultimately the work construct for physicians. And I, just like I said, we would always need human contact. We'll always need physicians. We'll never eradicate illness or disease from the planet. We'll never eradicate the need for people to help us get our bodies better. So I think the long-term implications are only that we can help them increase their own revenues, increase their own efficiency and their own effectiveness. One of the things that's happening with the shortage of good physicians, and maybe one of the reasons for the shortage of good physicians, is the hours some of these folks have to put in just to keep up with their regular patient loads. And what we're ultimately trying to do is give them a greater ability to keep up with their patients and stay informed and stay effective. So if anything, I see provider revenues increasing as the amount of support that they can give their communities increases, right? It's just a math problem at that point. And a little more satisfaction because maybe they get a little better accuracy in their predictions and preventions, right? So
No, absolutely, Matt. And it just sounds like, Timed Health Corporation, there's just such an opportunity here for you to touch so many different areas of the healthcare industry. Really, if you wanted to, A through Z. And I think that's, where you're trying to go.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is awesome. Another question here, contingent upon achieving, you touched upon some of the goals in 2021, where would the company be positioned, and where do you see yourselves going in 2022?
A great question. So again, for this offering, our intention is to get the software commercializable. As we go into 2022, really the model becomes expanding the data footprint to really make the data model robust. As with any data analytics, it's predicated on data to make trending and analysis decisions. So part of that is finding critical mass of the analytical engine itself. As we get into 2022 and beyond, I think then we start to look at how do we advance the technologies beyond just data analytics and start looking into artificial intelligence and potentially even really amplifying the remote access piece of this. We talk about advanced supplies of 2-day medications at your point of use. How can we make that maybe more robust and secure? And as risk profiles change, maybe that becomes a longer horizon instead of 2 days, or other ideas for remote dispensation technologies, or dispensing technologies, I should say. So I think there's a bright future ahead. There's plenty of opportunity. First step is getting the software and the system in place, and then we can continue to seek innovation beyond that.
And Matt, just hearing you speak and knowing about Timed Health for some time now, there's obviously a lot of exciting things going on with the company. Could you highlight or maybe pinpoint, kind of the top of the most exciting things that are happening that you're most specifically excited about with the, really Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2021?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is an exciting time of any company when you're getting to a point where you feel like you're at a breakthrough and you want to get some money and really commercialize this. And here we are talking with you and Net Capital to try to raise some funds. We have some other offerings that are presenting themselves. So to me, the excitement is, after several years of being involved in the company in various roles, finally getting to a point where we're feeling that momentum and feeling that critical mass. And we know exactly what we need to do. We just need the means to get there, right? As you can understand, we talked earlier about raising money and the implications and the challenges. So to me, right now is the most exciting time.
Well, I guess that's another perfect opportunity for us to segue into, if anyone is interested, you can go to netcapital.com, search Timed Health Corporation, and if you so choose, so make an investment into Timed Health Corporation. A lot of exciting stuff going on with Timed Health Corporation. And as I mentioned, and you've been hearing, I'm with Matt O'Connor, the executive co-chairman of Timed Health Corporation. And Matt, as we come to a wrap up here, thinking about the questions that have been asked from me and the questions that have been asked externally, what do you really, with what we didn't cover, what do you want people to know about Timed Health Corporation, and really where you're going, and the excitement on why it gets you out of bed every day, and why you're so driven to really grow this company into what you believe it can be?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it comes back to what everyone's striving for, and their why and their purpose. And ultimately, we've outlined kind of in data and in theory, but our goal is to basically improve the healthcare experience, right? We want to not prevent, I guess, but shorten the time horizon for some of these long-term illnesses, and effectively, we're not a wellness company, but improve the wellness of the population, right? And we do that through providing systems and processes to where we can, again, reduce that time to care and ultimately prevent long-term health impacts for everybody. So, to me, this is more about, giving back to patients, payers, providers, so that we can simplify the process, remove the burdens on the healthcare system, and really allow healthcare to innovate, right? So I find it very exciting and cutting edge, and we're doing things that no one else has tried yet, which is, I think, probably the most interesting part.
Well, I think, Matt, that's where a lot of great ideas come from, right? Those who have the, the guts and the determination to do something that hasn't been done before.
Right.
Would just go back in history and just look at some of the great, innovations and companies that have been spawned on, and you mentioned the word purpose, and I think that's so important. I'm gonna go on a little tangent here for a sec, but people ask me all the time, Tom, what's your purpose? Like, why do you work in that capital? What gets you out of bed every day? And my purpose is to help entrepreneurs achieve their capital fundraising goals, which thus, helps them achieve their dreams. And, really your purpose with, and it all comes down to helping people. I think we both have an affinity for helping people. We're doing it on the capital side, and you're doing it, obviously on the healthcare side, and saving lives in the meantime, which is awesome. But I think, when folks really find their purpose and the mission driven statement of the company and of the meeting is purpose. I just think that, the outcome more so than not can be positive. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. It all comes down to people. That was a great way to summarize that. Thank you, Tom.
No, thank you, Matt. And in closing here, is there anything else that you would like the folks that are tuned in now, or anyone that will be listening? Like I said, this is a recorded webinar, and this will be up on our YouTube channel, which is via Net Capital. I'll say it again, you can visit Timed Health Corporation on netcapital.com. But as we come to a close, Matt, is there anything else that you would want potential investors or folks that are just in general potentially interested on Timed Health Corporation to know about you, your team, your company?
Yeah, Tom, thanks. I thought this was a great afternoon. We do have a great team. We have a great company. Very excited about it. Excited to share it, and looking forward to people giving us their confidence that we can really provide what we say we're going to provide. So thank you for today, and looking forward to hopefully great relationships with our investors going forward.
No, absolutely, Matt. And it seems like you're well on your way with that. And before I end, just want to say congratulations. Congratulations to you, the Timed Health Corporation team, and everything that your company not only has accomplished, but I said this before, most excitingly, where Timed Health Corporation is going. And thank you for trusting in Net Capital to handle your investor relations and helping with the capital fundraise of your company. We've had a blast doing it. We've learned a ton from you and your company, and just really looking forward to growing the relationship with you guys. So thank you for the opportunity, and just want to take a moment to thank everyone that is listening now, and thank everyone that will be listening in the future. My name is Tom Smith. I'm a member of the business development team at Net Capital, and it was my absolute pleasure to meet today with Matt O'Connor, the executive co-chairman of Timed Health Corporation. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you soon.